Hey everyone, welcome to today's show. So glad that you're able to join us. Have you heard about opportunity zones and opportunity funds created by recent federal tax legislation? Are you curious about what they do and what they could mean for your investment future and what impact they have in the state of New Jersey? Well, my guests today have some great insight because they're part of a new joint venture called Shared Values Investing. Learn more on Housing Jersey today. All right, so excited to introduce our guests today, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. Gentlemen, would you mind just sharing who you are, what you do, so everybody knows who they're talking to today?
Thank you, Jay, for inviting us on your podcast. I'm Bob Hutchins. I am CEO of ELLAVOZ Impact Capital and the managing director of the ELLAVOZ Shared Values Opportunity Fund. By profession, I was a certified public accountant, managing partner of my own firm, and eventually merged with a top 25 CPA firm, Withum Smith & Brown, of which I retired from approximately 1 year ago. What I've done in partnership with Wayne and his team is put together a shared values or social impact opportunity fund where we're going to try to bring value and dignity to distressed communities through the opportunity zone investing tax benefit vehicles called qualified opportunity funds. Just a little more background on me is I've been involved in affordable housing as a social entrepreneur since 1993. I founded Ocean Housing Alliance, which is a 48-bed residential healthcare facility in Point Pleasant Beach for seriously mentally ill, low-income adults. Been an advocate for affordable housing and special needs housing, especially for about 30 years.
Excellent, and thank you, Bob, and we'll pitch it over to Wayne.
Yeah, so first of all, Jay, thanks so much for having Bob and I on today. It's a privilege to be with you. And my name is Wayne Meyer. I'm the president of New Jersey Community Capital. I've been privileged to be in this role now for, I guess, going on over 11 years. And by just a little bit of background, New Jersey Community Capital is a 32-year-old nonprofit community development financial institution. We're referred to as a CDFI. And we are a statewide organization. We're certified by U.S. Treasury. And in our 32-year history, we've tried to develop a number of programs, products, and services where we can make financing and investments into low and moderate income communities. And we have two really guiding principles, right? The first is how can we invest to make better places? And by that, I mean we make investments into housing. We make investments into educational facilities, community facilities, economic development projects, small business, arts and culture, all the different building blocks and elements of making place. And the second, though, and equally as important, is around people, right? And how can we achieve equity as a desired social outcome? So our philosophy is guided by those two principles, place and people. And so what we've developed really are 5 major business lines to help us do that. The first is we're a nonprofit lender, right? And we lend across all of those different asset classes I just mentioned. We're fortunate in our lending tool to have received from U.S. Treasury, for example, $250 million in new market tax credits, which allow us to promote economic development and operating businesses in communities where we work in. We're the leading rent lender, for example, around early child care and charter school and community facilities in New Jersey. So lending is a big part of our operation. We also created, really in response to the foreclosure crisis, a nonprofit real estate development affiliate called the Community Asset Preservation Corporation, CAPC. And now in its 10-year history, CAPC's become the leading nonprofit affordable housing developer in New Jersey. building out really a social enterprise, a vertically integrated organization that does acquisition, development, construction management, brokerage, property management, and construction management. We also have a program we call Restart, which is really, again, a response to the foreclosure crisis, where we become the leading purchaser of non-performing distressed residential mortgages with the goal of trying to keep families in their homes. And to date, we've purchased roughly about 2,750 mortgages. We have permanently modified over 1,000 of those mortgages. But it also provides an opportunity for us to develop the vacant properties as affordable housing. And finally, we have two other programs. One is we call our Community Strategies team, which actually has nothing to do with transactions. It's all about system change, because it's our view that you just can't build projects to change community. That you need to change systems. And that systems could be around planning, it's around data, it's a way that we absorb capital, aggregate capital. So our community strategy group focuses on that type of issue. And finally, again, in response to what we saw around mortgages lending to low moderate income families, we created a partnership with the largest credit union called Affinity Federal Credit Union, where we originate mortgages to low moderate income families, because we still feel that responsible homeownership is still not only a way to build and strengthen communities, but also a way to promote generational wealth. So what we try to do is aggregate all 5 of those business lines, and we work from Salem, New Jersey, up to Patterson, New Jersey, primarily in our low moderate income communities, with the goal of trying to advance them from a people and place perspective.
Yeah, and it's awesome to hear how diverse everybody's background is, all the way from Bob on the CPA side and his experience with affordable and housing for persons with special needs, and then all the way through lending and nonprofit sector, systems management and systems planning. So you guys obviously have a breadth of experience between your 2 persons as well as your organizations. So if you wouldn't mind, in terms of your new initiative as a partnership, Bob, could you introduce for folks what is an opportunity fund? And in your specific case, what's a qualified opportunity fund with your specific mission in mind?
Sure. The Qualified Opportunity Fund is a very tax-favored entity created by the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which was signed in December of 2017, provisions effective 2018, it created a vehicle that provided a lot of many tax benefits to private sector investors in communities that qualified as opportunity zone communities. Now, these were census tracts, 8,700 across the country, about 170 something in New Jersey, which had high levels of income that qualified as poverty under certain levels, and were in desperate need of redevelopment, and probably without the incentives driven by the 1400Z code section, probably would not have gotten the private capital necessary to really bring these communities to life. Opportunity funds make investments in qualified opportunity zone projects, which is one of these particular census tracts. Opportunity funds, qualified opportunity funds, meet a very complex array of tax provisions of section 1400Z of the Internal Revenue Code, as well as well over 500 pages of regulations that came out in just a few months ago, frankly, that Internal Revenue Service put out to clarify and give guidance to us in the opportunity fund business and opportunity zone investment business, guidance as to how we comply with all these rules. Uh, it is in order to invest in a qualified opportunity zone property, you must go through a qualified opportunity fund.
If you want the tax benefits anyway, for sure.
That is correct. Right.
So can you expound on that a little bit, Bob? What are those tax benefits that you alluded to if someone were considering an investment such as through your shared values opportunity fund?
Absolutely, Jay. We hear a lot of defer, discount, and exclude. The deferral means that you can defer paying the tax on the capital gains that you incur until you file your 2026 tax return. And you can discount the actual amount you pay if you hold it for more than 5 years. It's 10%. If you've held it for more than 7 years, it'll be 15%. And then exclusion happens at the end of the 10 years. If you hold your investment in a qualified opportunity fund for at least 10 years and a day, you can exclude the gain on the original investment. Let me explain by example. If I purchased stock 5 years ago for $100,000 and I sold it last month for $1 million, I have a $900,000 gain. Well, since New Jersey is a conforming state to the federal code recognizing opportunity zone tax, deferral, exclusion, etc. If I do nothing, I pay about $300,000 in taxes on that $900,000, and I'm left with $700,000 for myself. 300 pays on the 900 plus my $100,000 principal return. If I choose to invest that $900,000 in a qualified opportunity fund, I don't have to pay that $300,000 this year. I can defer it until I file my 2026 return. And when I do pay it, because I invested it in 2020, I get a 10% discount. So I'm only going to pay $270,000 in taxes 6 years from now. So the discount in the actual tax to be paid, along with the time value of money, is very attractive, especially for high net worth or high income individuals. I think the most attractive benefit to this program, and which draws what we call patient money investment, is if I hold my investment in the opportunity fund for over 10 years, the gain inside of the fund is tax excluded. So example, if that $900,000 gain I invested, if it becomes worth $1,900,000 in 2030, in June of 2030, when I sell and get my money back, that $1 million capital gain is completely free of state and federal taxes. That's the equivalent of a taxable almost $1.5 million gain. So the tax benefits exponentially improve your return, as well as the social impact that you're making over the 10-year period.
Right. Yeah. And, for folks who are more familiar with my space in terms of, housing market investing, they may be familiar with something called the 1031 exchange. And really that's a postponement or a, kind of time limited push of your tax liability for income capital gains, as long as you're investing it in a similar asset class. But what you're saying is, in this type of an investment, there's both a time push as well as a mitigation of overall liability, and basically no liability if you hold for a certain time period on the gains in that investment.
Correct, Jay. Actually, the qualified opportunity zone investment has more flexibility than the traditional tax-free 1031 exchanges that we as tax advisors, and I had a lot of real estate developer clients in my practice, so frequently use. As you know, the 1031 exchange rules are pretty rigid. You have to hire a qualified intermediary. The money has to be escrowed. You have 45 days to identify properties. You have 180 days to close. If anything is botched, you lose the tax deferral. If you want to defer the gain, you have to invest all the sales proceeds, essentially, of the sold property. So if you bought property for $500,000 and you sold it for $1 million, you would have to reinvest at least $1 million in order to defer the gain on 500. With a qualified opportunity fund, you only need to reinvest the profit, the capital gain portion, and you can, let's call it, take your money off the table. The 500,000 comes back to you tax-free. The 500,000 of profit goes into the qualified opportunity fund and is subject to those tax benefits on that side. In addition, qualified opportunity funds can be a really helpful way to mitigate a botched 1031 exchange, where a purchase for replacement property didn't come through. You can still possibly take that money, roll it into an opportunity fund as a way to defer that tax. And there is more flexibility on the time limits too, depending on whether the assets held in a pass-through, but those are the complexities that qualified opportunity fund managers like ourselves deal with.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really helpful, I think, for folks who, are really thinking about how this can work in housing spaces for that purpose of investment, that this is actually a tool that has a lot more flexibility than an investor might have had in the past. And, speaking of flexibility, I know one of the amazing things about your particular venture is that it's a joint venture between a for-profit LLC in ELLAVOZ as well as New Jersey Community Capital, which Wayne introduced obviously as a CDFI and a nonprofit. So Wayne, I'm wondering from your perspective, what is the real advantage in your space for a partnership such as this?
Jay, what the Opportunity Zone Fund really was designed to do was try to attract capital into areas that, traditionally have difficulty investing in capital, primarily because they're in communities and neighborhoods that are, lower income. Year history at New Jersey Community Capital, we started as a grand experiment. Our experiment was, well, could we organize capital effectively in areas that traditionally did not have access to that capital, right? And could we make a difference in doing that, right? And so the Opportunity Zone Fund, similar to like the New Market Tax Credit, provides us an opportunity to try to attract capital to advance our work. And I think where the partnership makes sense, and of course, working with Bob is just a privilege for us. But New Jersey Community Capital has worked in these communities for 30 years. In our 30-year history, we've probably financed $1 billion of transactions, 12,000 housing units, 6 million square feet of commercial real estate space, 25,000 education slots, right? In our 32-year-old history, right, we've never not repaid an investor. So we know the communities that we're working in. We know the needs. The question is how we can get more capital to advance our work. And so with the Opportunity Zone Fund, and in particular, our partnership with ELLAVOZ and Bob, gives us an important tool in our toolbox that allows us to, attract, as Bob mentioned, patient capital that we can make investments in projects that really provide a good return to investors, but also achieve a social outcome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that some people may not understand the role that aggregating capital for a constructive use can play. I think many of us, are operating on our daily life platform, and you guys are really in a position, I think, to see the broader picture of how investing in communities plays out and the impact works over time, as you alluded to. Is that really what you're trying to say? You're really playing the long game with these monies?
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing that we've learned, right, is that, you know, in our 32-year history, that you can manage conventional risk in these markets just as well as you can in other markets, right? And that, you know, the fact that you're in a particular low, moderate income census tract, or you're working in different genders and race, are not, you know, right, reliable indicators of financial performance. I think we've proven that we've been able to advance these outcomes while repaying all of our investors.
I feel like that was a plug for fair housing right there, Wayne. That was fantastic. And, you know, I would pitch it back over to Bob and just saying, you know, in terms of an explanation for someone, you know, what is making this partnership between ELLAVOZ and New Jersey Community Capital, you know, so effective for your opportunity zone investments?
Well, I think first of all, the opportunity to work with New Jersey Community Capital, Wayne and his team, gives all of our social impact angel network members complete confidence in what we're doing, and knowing that not only is there investments being made rationally and conservatively, but also professionally, and doing it in a way which accomplishes the social impact outcomes that we're looking for. There are a great many individuals who have been successful in their life. Many I had as clients for years, who would like to do more to see to give a hand up to people in distressed communities. They simply didn't understand how to do it. This partnership and the ability to work with New Jersey Community Capital links that private capital sector with professionals in community development in a common purpose. I think it's unique. It's a privilege for me to be involved in this, and I think it's going to be successful. And we have 10 years to change a lot of communities, and I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, and to your point, Bob, about common purpose, I think the way that you all have explained it is as shared values investing. And I know you've been trying to explain what that means to folks. And is that really what you mean? It's a common purpose, a common cause around the impact?
Our investors, our shared values impact investors, they share the values that we have, that Wayne and his team have. We're all on the same page in what we want to accomplish. We bring capital, we bring expertise, and we bring the experience of New Jersey Community Capital. And as Wayne said, they've been doing it for 32 years. They've been doing a tremendous job. They haven't had any projects that lost money for their investors. And this gives us the comfort to talk to our investors and say, this is the best organization that we can partner with to share our purpose in over the next 10 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. And obviously assurance for an investor of good performance, and to Wayne's point about being able to manage risk, no matter where the capital is deployed, that's a huge thing. In terms of, you know, the way that these funds are rolling out, Wayne, I know that you all, even though you're doing a hard launch in terms of announcing it to folks these days, that you've already been working, you know, as a team with Bob, and you already have some projects that are in the works. Can you speak to what you have going on and what you're planning as you move forward?
Sure. I think the projects, Jay, that, you know, we're working with Bob and his team on, I think are really so aligned to what the mission of New Jersey Community Capital, you know, is all about. And not only that, it's filling what we collectively believe is a real gap in the work that needs to be done in New Jersey. So let me give you an example. You know, the first is that we're working on a project in Newark where we're converting an old hospital building, 88,000 square feet. We call it Newark Arts Common. Within that, it's going to be the Center for Arts in the Newark area. We're attracting some of the, you know, the most innovative arts organization, but we're also providing in there a housing a common living, co-living housing that we're introducing into the downtown Newark area. So it's a gateway project. It's a spectacularly beautiful building. It's on the National Historic Register, and it's a gateway project into downtown Newark. And we're so excited that we're partnering with Bob and ELLAVOZ on that. The other is we're working on in New Jersey, and you know this, Jay, as well as anybody, in terms of affordable housing, we have really a number of challenges, right? The first is preservation. How do we preserve what we think are, just vital affordable housing units? And so we are in the process of acquiring a project that is coming out of its, compliance period. It's free to go into the market as a market rate project. But with our partnership with ELLAVOZ and Bob, we're making an investment to keep it as a much needed affordable housing in New Jersey for the long term. That's another area. We're also working on what I think is probably the most exciting project. We're working on a scattered site, project where it's mostly 1 to 4 family homes. Because if you think about it, in New Jersey, our home ownership rate, as you know, has gone from a high of like 73, 74% down into the 66, 67%. What does that really represent? That represents literally tens of thousands of 1 to 4 family structures that are now part of a rental unit. And the question is, how do we respond to that? So through our work in CAPC and our mortgage loan purchase program, we've been able to buy literally thousands of scattered site units and repurpose them as affordable housing without a large amount of government money needed, which is really important. So we're working on a partnership with Bob and his team to make an investment to scale even further, the acquisition in bulk of scattered site housing that we can use and deploy as affordable housing in New Jersey. It accomplishes a couple of things. Not only is it provide supply of housing, right, which is so important, but it also provides, throughout the whole state in communities that typically don't usually introduce affordable housing. So I think the projects that we have, the Newark Arts Common is a really neighborhood project promoting economic development and housing. We have a preservation of affordable housing project, and we have an increase in the supply of affordable housing. So it's all projects that really deeply align to the work and mission of New Jersey Community Capital. And it's one of those but for. So but for capital like Bob and ELLAVOZ bring, they wouldn't be a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And those investors that are looking for an opportunity for making an impact, they can obviously see the shared values that you and your organizations have. I think it's a great opportunity for someone to investigate how to have a legacy with the monies that they have and not have to necessarily, pay any price in terms of their tax liability. In fact, get some tax advantages in that way. So hopefully it is a vehicle for even more investment in those things, including affordable housing and supportive housing that you mentioned, Wayne. It's a really exciting opportunity. I would remind folks that, as Bob said, though, it is specific opportunity zone tracts. So if anybody's interested, in the show notes, I'm going to put up the DCA map that shows where those opportunity zones are in the state of New Jersey, at least, because I know that's where you're all focusing. But anything else that we haven't gone over in terms of what you all want to communicate to someone who may just be hearing about your joint venture for the first time, since it's so new in the world? Bob?
Well, I would invite them to go to our website. There's a video on opportunity fund investing and legacy investing, how to become a impact angel, a member of the Impact Angel Network. There's some information on the projects, that project in Newark. That's helpful. I think they should go to the New Jersey Community Capital website and look a little about that, look at that and see what kind of great work that they do and the exceptional team that they have. And of course, both Wayne and I would love to talk to anybody a little bit more about shared value investing, opportunity funds, and how they can provide tax benefits as well as legacy.
And Wayne, anything else you would add?
I mean, I would just add on to what Bob said, and the one thing I would like to emphasize is that, you know, these transactions that Bob and I and the teams are working on together, you know, there's economic viability here. You know, taxes are an important part in terms of attracting the capital, and you know, they add a value to the investor. But I can assure any investor that comes into these transactions, besides, you know, the tax advantages of it, the social outcomes we're achieving, is that, you know, we have a rigor in making sure there's economic and business viability for all the projects.
That's awesome. And, you know, I just really want to thank both of you gentlemen for being here and explaining a little bit more about this exciting new venture that you've partnered on. Thank you so much for being on our program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Bob, great seeing you.